Happy Thanksgiving. I'm wishing you all the blessings for a sweet holiday, a healthy holiday, and an early Happy Hanukkah. This year, Hanukkah falls on the Sunday night after Thanksgiving, and that convergence of Thanksgiving and Hanukkah gives me an opportunity to teach you a little bit about the Jewish calendar, the secular calendar, how they came to be, and where our place is in all of it. This is probably more than you ever wanted to know about calendars. If you remember back in 2013, something unique happened. It had never happened before in the history of the universe, and it may never happen again. 2013 was Thanksgivukkah. Thanksgiving Day was also the first night of Hanukkah, the first candle. It was a hoot. We really gobbled it up. People wished each other Gobble Tov instead of Mazel Tov. They made menorkis, Hanukkah menorahs shaped like turkeys. They even made chalurkis, a challah shaped like a turkey with raisins for the eyes. People really got very kitschy when it comes to the convergence of Hanukkah and Thanksgiving. As I said, this year there's a little bit of separation with a Shabbat in between, but it gives us an opportunity to unpack the calendar. And I hope it'll make for some good conversation at your Thanksgiving dinner tonight. Okay, ready to go on a mathematical brain-teasing exploration? Thanksgiving is always the fourth Thursday in November. That means it can fall somewhere between the 22nd and the 28th of November. If it's the 21st or earlier, it would be the third Thursday in November. If it's the 29th or later, it would be the fifth Thursday in November. So it's always between the 22nd and the 28th. And it falls on the 28th approximately once in 7 years because there's 7 days of the week. So approximately 1 in 7, the 28th is a Thursday. And upcoming November 28th Thanksgivings include 2024, 2030, and 2041. So there you see approximately every 7 years. Hanukkah is always on the 25th of Kislev each year. If you need help remembering that, just think of the name Chanukah. It ends in the letters Kaf He, Chanukah, Kaf He. And the numerical equivalent of Ka, Kaf He, is 25. And so Hanukkah always falls on the 25th of Kislev. Now, the 25th of Kislev can range. The earliest it can be is November 28th, but it can go as late as December 27th. The Jewish calendar is lunar solar. It was developed by Shmuel, a Babylonian sage in the 2nd century. The months are determined by the moon. Rosh Chodesh, the Jewish new month, is always on the new moon. But the lengths of the months, how long they are, and the number of months in a given year, well, those can vary. They're not fixed. And the reason that they vary is to coordinate with the solar calendar, to keep our holidays in line with the appropriate seasons. Pesach, Passover, always needs to be in the spring, and Sukkot always needs to be in the fall. They're agricultural holidays. They're harvest festivals. They wouldn't make sense if they were in a different season. So we need to find a way to keep our holidays fixed in the appropriate seasons. You can contrast this with the Muslim calendar. The Muslim calendar is a purely lunar calendar, 12 months every year, 354 days, which means that the holidays drift slowly throughout the seasons of the year. Ramadan is a moving target. It's always the 9th month of the lunar calendar, but that could fall sometimes in summer, sometimes in fall, sometimes in winter. There's actually a Muslim blessing. May you live to see Ramadan in every season, which would mean living a long life, because over the course of a long life, a person sees the holidays migrate through the seasons. I really like that blessing. You can also contrast it with the Christian calendar, which is primarily solar. Christmas is always on December 25th. There's one exception to that rule, which is Easter. Easter is connected to Passover because the holiday of Easter commemorates the resurrection of Jesus, which happened after the Last Supper, which was a Passover Seder. So Easter is always on the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the spring equinox, which is March 21st. If you can't remember that, don't worry. Let's return to our question. Thanksgiving is always the fourth Thursday in November, and Hanukkah is always the 25th of Kislev. The latest Thanksgiving can be is November 28th. The earliest Hanukkah can be is November 28th. So we need that magical day of November 28th to coincide, to be both Thanksgiving Day and the 25th of Kislev when night falls. Now, how do we calculate how often that can be? One more facet of the Jewish calendar, which is that it's on a 19-year cycle. Every 19 years, the secular date on the secular calendar aligns with its partner on the Jewish calendar. So my birthday is the 17th of January. In the year I was born, that was the 3rd of Shvat. Approximately every 19 years, those two dates will coincide, and it'll be both January 17th and the 3rd of Shvat. Doesn't always work out, but it's approximately every 19 years. So if November 28th is a Thursday, 1 in 7 years, and if November 28th is the 25th of Kislev, once in 19 years, if you multiply 7 by 19, you get 133. We would expect that once every 133 years, that the date of November 28th would both be Thanksgiving Day, a Thursday, and also the 25th of Kislev. But that isn't the case. The last one was in 1861. The problem with that date was that Thanksgiving wasn't established as a federal holiday until a presidential proclamation in 1863. So in 1861, when November 28th was the 25th of Kislev, it wasn't Hanukkah. It was Hanukkah, but it wasn't Thanksgiving yet because Thanksgiving didn't exist as a holiday. We would expect the next coincidence to be 2165, but it's not. And I'll explain why. Remember Shmuel, the Jewish sage who established the calendar? He thought, as everyone did at that time, that the secular year was 365 and a quarter days long. But it's actually slightly less. 11 minutes less, to be precise. The secular year, the time it takes the earth to revolve around the sun, is 365.2425 days long. It doesn't seem like much, but it adds up over time. Now, in 1582, Pope Gregory XIII encountered this problem and came up with a corrective. He realized that this was going to cause the calendar to be out of whack. And so Pope Gregory cut 10 days from the calendar, just like that. He cut out 10 days. And he eliminated 3 leap days every 400 years from the solar calendar. That's why we call it the Gregorian calendar after Pope Gregory. A leap year is every year that is divisible by 4, but not also divisible by 100, but not 400. I got confused in my words right there, but the key fact is that the year 1600 is a leap year, but the year 1700 is not. That is very confusing. It is for me too, but the key point is that the solar year is slightly less than 365 and a quarter days, and we have 3 fewer leap years every 400 years. In 1752, the British Empire adopted the Gregorian calendar, but Jews didn't have that corrective in our calendar. So we've been drifting out of sync with the solar calendar 11 minutes every year, or 3 days every 400 years. I should add that we're not only drifting out of sync with the secular calendar, we're drifting out of sync with the universe. By 2165, when we would have expected the next Thanksgivukkah, Hanukkah will actually be 1 whole day later on our calendar. I don't know if I'll be alive to see it in 2165, but it is something that we should all be aware of that's coming up. If the system stands, we could let the calendar drift, and over the next tens of thousands of years, we might get back to Hanukkah in the appropriate season where we could have a Thanksgivukkah, but more likely we're going to have to at some point have a corrective. Why did I share all this with you? Because time is important. How we mark time is extremely important. It defines the rhythm of our lives. It's how we measure progress. It's how we link ourselves to the cosmos, to society, to community, to something eternal. Without these anchors in time, we have no sense of where we are in the universe, when we are in history, or who we're meant to be in this world. Both Thanksgiving and Hanukkah are on my calendar. They're important to me as I imagine they are to you. And this weekend we might have a little bit of whiplash as we shift from one set of holidays and stories and rituals to the next, as we turn over our plates from the fleischigs of turkey to the milchiks of jelly donuts. We might want to wait a few hours to digest. Maybe that's the purpose of the Shabbat in between, to give us time to rest and allow our blessings to catch up with us before we move on to the next holiday. But as we think about this convergence, let us appreciate that this is a unique experience. It doesn't happen that often in history, and it's unique for us as American Jews. In Israel, they're not talking about Thanksgivukkah, nor were Jews in Yemen 100 years ago, nor our non-Jewish friends and neighbors here in the United States. The ancients understood that the stars in the sky, the seasons changing, the ebb and flow of the natural cycles of the universe, they happen within us all the time. They're elemental parts of our existence in this world for the small blip of eternity that we're blessed to inhabit it. The ancients pondered their place in the cosmos and used nature as a way to encounter the creator of all, the source of all life. They didn't Google, when's Rosh Hashanah this year? Or what time do I have to light my candles for Shabbat? Instead, they looked up at the sky, and if the sun was setting, it was time to light candles. If there were 3 stars outside, time to say Havdalah. And they looked at the moon, they observed it, they inspected it to make sure they understood where they were. We have a lot of scientific and technological advancements that they had, but that they did not have. But in some ways, I feel we've lost that sense of connection to the universe and our place in it. The wisdom of our ancestors is that we have a purpose under this heaven, if only we look up and try and understand it. So I hope you have a side of latkes with your turkey this year and enjoy some leftover cranberry sauce with your candles, because this is about as close as Hanukkah will come to Thanksgiving in our lifetimes. But I wish you all the blessings of this season, and I pray that the auspicious convergence of these calendars makes us all more attuned to the natural, cosmic, and spiritual rhythms of our lives. Happy Thanksgiving and happy Hanukkah.